Guten Morgen und willkommen zu Beyond Singing. Ich freue mich wahnsinnig, wieder zurück zu sein und hoffe, dass ihr alle einen wunderbaren Start hattet ins neue Jahr, auch wenn es nicht besonders gut aussieht im Moment. Trotzdem hoffe ich, dass ihr soweit einen guten Start hattet. Und ich freue mich sehr, heute Frances Marshall hier zu haben von Marshall Light Studio. Und wir werden das Interview auf Englisch führen, denn Frances ist in London. Moment.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Welcome to Beyond Singing.
Thank you so much. I heard your introduction in German and I was like, oh, wow, please start speaking English.
Yeah, actually I was thinking about that. Should I do the introduction as well in English now? And then I said, well, they will realize that we're speaking English. So
no, because I don't know how embarrassed I would be if I had to speak the German that I have. So I have so much respect for you living in Germany, speaking German, and also being able to speak English as well as you do. Well, it's amazing to me. I'm dreadful when it comes to languages, so I have so much praise for you.
Yeah, I mean, you already live there, so you don't have to, you know. So everybody's speaking English.
I know. It makes me feel very lazy, though, you know. Anyway, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? How are things in London? How are things with COVID?
Well, we're in a full lockdown now, but I think everyone's sort of accepting that. But yeah, it's just about making the most of what you can do. Our business is mainly through Zoom, but, you know, we're connecting with everybody and we're probably having more meetings than we would have had usually, because we used to always, every time we'd have a new client, we'd fly, or, you know, we'd go and always have coffee or lunch with them. And, you know, that would take up maybe 2 or 3 days, which we loved. And we really loved doing that. But, you know, we're able to, you know, have 10 meetings a week or whatever we need to have. And it's great. It's actually really efficient. So there have been strange positives in all of this. But yeah, like I you know, it is what it is. What can we do? You know, it has to be done, and it is important. Like the UK death rates are absolutely horrific. So, you know, the easiest thing that we can do is work from home. We've always had a home office. That's the way we love to work. So we were kind of lucky because very little changed actually in our everyday. You know, obviously shoots stopped. And photographing live performances, but the actual runnings of our company was always from a home office. So we were able to keep that going, and we had that structure in place, which felt quite good at the time, you know, and still has. So yeah, you know,
that sounds great. I mean, we will talk about your company in a few minutes, but I would like to know about your path there, because actually you were trained as an opera singer. So how was your path there to coming to build this company from an opera singer?
Well, basically, like I was lucky enough to, my parents sent me to music lessons when I was about 5. I started training in piano, and then I started going to singing lessons when I was about 16 in the DIT in Dublin, which is the TU Conservatory now. And then I went to do a music and English degree at NUI Maynooth, which was amazing, also in Ireland, and did a master's there as well, and then trained as a singer in the Royal Irish Academy of Music. And yeah, but you know, then trained as a music teacher. Like, all my background is music, all my training is music. I trained as a music teacher then in Trinity College in Dublin as well. But the whole time I had my camera with me, and I was working, and, you know, all of my friends were musicians, so I was photographing them. So, you know, when you generally talk to photographers, it's, you know, they built a career on what they knew. So that's how my life moved that way. And I've always felt so comfortable around artists in general. Like, I love writers, artists, painters, anyone who works in the arts. I love people who create in general. And I always think they're so interesting to work with and photograph. So it's always energized me. It's always, you know, been a very positive experience. So it was all very holistic and natural. And I suppose that I started being able to work with more international artists because I got a job in the National Concert Hall in Dublin as well. And I was working in front of house, you know, like, you know, seating people and selling programs. And, you know, I loved it. You know, some of my best friends have come from that job. And but I suddenly am in a room where Cecilia Bartoli is on stage, and Thomas Sampson's on stage, and Uta Lemper is performing. And my managers were really kind to me and let me go backstage and photograph backstage and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it really started for me. That's where I was able to sort of feel like this is an international opportunity, and through social media, actually, I built my career completely on my own doing that. So yeah, that's basically how I went from music student to photographer, because I would never have really called myself a performer. I enjoyed performing, but there was definitely something missing in it for me, and I feel like the photography had just ticked every single box. It was just so natural. I was just never really thinking about the fact that I loved it. I just did. So that would sort of, I think that's basically the path to it. And then the company was something completely different, Martial Arts Studio, that we're now in our 4th year running. And that came from me sort of wanting to work in London. London has always been this dream city in my brain.
And you were in Dublin before?
Yeah. I'm born in Dublin and raised in Dublin and lived in Dublin. But London was always just this dream, metropolis for me. And I have family here as well. So, I would have been over and back a lot. So I always wondered, God, could I ever, make it happen here? Because the classical scene and the opera scene is just absolutely enormous. And it's one of the biggest hubs in the world. And there was so much going on, and I just was like, oh God, could I ever make this happen? So I started working with some clients here, and then I met my partner, Sophie, as well, who was a designer and had been working for quite big agencies in central London and working with large brands, like very, very mainstream big brands. And she really wanted to get into the more personal relationship with the client, and that was exactly how I worked with our clients. So we thought it would work really well. So we actually set our company up together then, like I said, about 4 years ago now. And it's been great. We've never looked back. It's been really, really good. So, and even during lockdown, at the beginning, it was terrifying, really scary, because the arts took such a smack, as did every sector, but the arts in particular, I feel, really took a very hard blow, and that's due to many, many reasons. But we were very lucky and we kept going, because obviously the photography aspect had to stop in ways until there was pockets where we could work. But with our main focus is branding, and the photography is a huge part of the branding. We're still able to work with clients and develop our websites and develop our branding and work with, because we work with festivals as well who'd all been cancelled. So we had to come around them and work with them on how to become more of an online experience and, turn their website into a more engaging online feel, rather than it being a reference point for someone who's actually going to a live event, that the website became the experience. So we worked a lot with our clients on that and connected with them, and we have the best clients in the world. Like we love them so much. A lot of them, have become very close friends as well. So it's just been a lovely time to connect with everybody and support, and there's such opportunity to help as well, and that's what really makes us feel great about the day.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
and what is this branding all about? I think I guess most people really don't know what it is in terms of classical music, or how can a singer actually be a brand? Or, I mean, if you're not very famous, and what is that, and what are you doing in that company?
Well, the thing is about a brand is it's such a wide asking question, because there's so many different aspects of it. I would always look at who's your audience. So if you're a rising singer, if you're coming out of college or a studio, your audience may not be the public. That's the biggest thing to sort of be aware of. Your audience is very probably more studios, casting directors, agents, so you have to make sure that your website is actually geared towards them, and you have to see yourself as a business. So I'll get onto that later when we talk about entrepreneurship and all of that. But basically, when it comes to branding, the classical music industry is a brand in itself. And what we find is that artists, it can be it's very daunting, if you don't feel, a lot of people don't feel like they actually belong in this classical music brand. And our job, and we're very passionate about doing this, is saying, yes, you do, because it needs fresh blood, it needs fresh ideas, it needs different ideas, like every brand does. And our job is to work on a very unique brand identity for the individual artist that will also balance and work within the classical music industry. So it's not as if we're saying, you just rebel against absolutely everything. We want you to feel that you're very much have your feet on the ground in who you are, and that your brand lives and exists very nicely within the classical music world, exactly in the space that you want it to. So what do you want to be known for? So we'll start with all the questions of, okay, what voice type are you? What rep do you want to be singing? And we'll zone right into those questions and then work out, okay, how do you need to be seen, and how does a casting director need to see you? So two aspects to the business. One is creating intelligent, high-end art that is interesting for people to experience. That's in one half. And then the other side is getting that art out there. And those two things are 50-50 in running the business. We're in the getting that art out there. So we don't ever engage in this conversation. That's for your singing teacher and your coach and your agent. You know, we stay out of that completely. But sometimes we will work with all of those people around you, if you have those people around you, and sometimes you don't have those people around you. And we work in all different circumstances. So we work at every tier. We work with the top artists who are, singing on the top stages. We work with rising stars, and we work with students straight out of college. And and we work with students as well. So we work with a lot of academic institutions here in the UK as well. So we work with every single aspect, and we also work with a lot of PR agencies and agents, classical music agents in general, when they need to make sure that their artist is completely aligned with basically the package that they're selling, that they're marketing for the company that they're trying to be hired in.
Okay. So this branding, I think what most people say actually in this business, or the most singers say, are actually where it's like, I don't fit in there. I don't know. I'm not that typical kind of singer. I don't know. I don't feel like a diva, or I don't want to be like that. I don't know how to put myself. And that's what you just said, right? So there's a place for everybody, and it's actually not about fitting in.
Oh, fitting in is so boring. But if you're an opera singer, I'm sure there's loads of other times in your life that you felt you haven't fit in. It's right. Not the most normal career to choose. So it must be happening to you in every part of your life, but in general, I think when you do really talk to people, most people feel like they don't belong. I'd love to know who feels like they're in the normal club, because I don't know anyone who is, and I like that. So we're always trying to work on what are those things that make people feel special, and maximizing those aspects. But there's a very important part of it, which is the building the persona. So that's what we'll build the brand identity on. So we'll go through, say if we were, sitting down with you, we'll say to you, okay, well, what do you bring to the stage? What do you want people to, feel when you're on stage? What's important to you off stage? And we'll go through all those sort of feelings. And because a brand is a feeling, it's a feeling you get when you meet somebody. It's a feeling when, as we talked about other brands before in our conversation, where you're talking about car brands or anything, it's about, what does this car brand make you feel like? A Mercedes is going to communicate a different feeling than an Opel, but the Opel might be appealing to you at some stage in your life, and then you might be dreaming of a different car. It works in both ways. So it's all about just the feeling. What feeling do I want to have? And that is, that would sort of make you decide, what theatre you want to go to. You're going to have a very different experience in the Wigmore Hall than you'll do in the Royal Opera House. Both venues absolutely fantastic, but will give you a different product and give you a different feeling. One will feel more intimate than the other. One will feel, more a huge, much more visualized set or whatever. They all give you different feelings. So to answer the question you actually asked me, which
you're already answering, yeah.
Am I answering it?
Yeah, you are also answering it.
Yeah. So no. Tell me, what was it again? I want to make sure I tick it.
So no, it's actually how people fit in. What is the difference?
Yes.
How can they? It's about.
People
it was not really a question.
Yeah. But I think what is really interesting is that when we were, I was telling you that we were running these free consultations during COVID, because when we loved them so much, and we've connected with people all over the world, and it's been really fun. And there's questions that we ask, and just to get that idea of where people are going. So I'm like, okay, if you were to dream limitlessly, which everyone should be anyway, because why be in this career if you're not thinking of really getting to where you need to be? What stage do you want to be singing on, and what's the role? And I'd say out of, because we've done a couple of hundred of them now, and 90% of those people that came to us were singers, and not a single person gave me the same answer. And that was probably the biggest experiment that I didn't even mean to do, that I observed from all of it. So we all think that we're in this huge competition against each other, that there's this all the same, even within the same voice type. Oh, she's the same voice type as me, or he's the same voice type, or whatever. And it's overall, we're not competing with each other, maybe in these moments of time, but what we all actually want is completely different, and I've always believed that there's room for everybody in everything that you want to do, and competition's really healthy. I love competition because it keeps you on your game, it keeps you focused. I don't like not being challenged. So but yeah, we're not as in competition as we think. I think that's the most important thing to always remember.
Totally. I think that's right that you're saying that, because of course there's a competition in terms of getting a job, but still you won't get the job if you don't communicate what you actually want to communicate and what you bring to the game, as you just said, because then there's no chance that you actually get the job.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what you're working out with this brand, actually, because you're actually giving the singer also the feeling of what is it that I actually can communicate, and how do my photographs look? That's, I think, a big part of it as well. I mean, is it very glamorous or edgy, or how does it look, and what kind of feeling does this give to the audience or to the people? What do you how do you do that photographs? What are you looking for when you're taking these photographs?
Well, I always, when you ask me that, it's difficult to answer, because if I could give you the perfect answer, there'd be no need for a photograph in the first place, because we just do it with words. But the thing is about the imagery is about really understanding where that person's going. So I'll spend an awful lot of time, and we both will, really getting under the skin of the singer and understanding who they are. Taking a picture of a pretty girl in a pretty dress against a pretty background is the most boring thing for me. I'm not interested in that at all. I want to make sure I'm communicating a feeling, again, through the image. Who are they? And of course, I'm not going to get right into the absolute soul of the person, because that's private, but I want to, it's my view of them, okay, as a photographer, which I don't mean it to sound narcissistic, but that's all that it can be. Is I walk into a room and I take a photograph of somebody, it can only be how I see them. There's amazing experiment done recently where there was a guy, and he was there were 5 photographers booked to photograph the same person, and each photographer was told that he was a different thing. So one was that he was a murderer, the other one was that he was leading a top charity that had raised millions for children, and so on, right? And the difference in the portraiture was absolutely phenomenal. So it is about our view of the artist, but we build that view with all the voices that are around that artist, like their agent, for example, their PR company, their marketing strategist, their business strategist, whoever is working with them. And we will have all those conversations beforehand to make sure it's as accurate a depiction. And then when we're selecting the imagery, obviously that's another whole stage of, did we nail it there, so that's what we go with. But we are now more than ever working with the photography and the branding aspect. So people come to us for everything in that aspect. So then we're able to create a very well-rounded visual output at the end, which can be quite impacting and works quite well.
And you just said that they also work with a business strategist and with marketing or PR company. So this is actually a very wide range. So how do you actually see that because we talked about entrepreneurship as well. How do you see that as a singer? I mean, how can we use that, or how can we think like that more as a one woman or one man company?
Well, I think from my personal experience, it took me so long to believe that I could be a photographer, that I could build my career as a photographer. I went into, I trained in so many different areas just because I was scared to give it everything, you know, because I was like, I can't do a career that's not financially viable. And that fear, I think I could easily say it held me back 7 years, you know. So if I had had the structure to know how I could do this, that would have really helped because I can't, you know, it's so hard to justify a career if you're not able to actually make it work, you know, because it is a career. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, you know, to take away from the obvious official definition, for me, it's creating a structure around yourself to allow you to build a career in whatever you want and whoever you want to be. So that when you wake up every morning, you're really excited to go to work and you really enjoy what you do, and you're not terrified of the bills, you're not terrified of your rent, you're making it work, because you can't go and bang on a door and beg to be hired if you're scared all the time of not being able to look after yourself, look after your family. And if you have kids as well, you know what I mean? Like, they have to be supported, you know, and you can't always feel like everything's about to fall apart, because you will have to give up then, you know what I mean? You won't be able to keep going. So that structure, I'm so passionate about making sure people have it. And, you know, the biggest aspect that I think is that, you know, in music schools, like opera studios and any of the main programs, and, you know, the third level institutions who are taking in and releasing performance students all the time, there's so few times that you will ever hear the words entrepreneurship, sole trader, small business. You are now working for yourself. You are now raising money for a business. You know, no one talks like that. So you're releasing thousands and thousands of music students every year all over the world who don't realize that they are running a company. Right. And that is detrimental. I feel that is absolutely detrimental, because if you had a module, and we work with a lot of third level colleges now to do workshops and talk about this, and we're not business strategists. We talk about the brand and the importance of having a structure around your company. We work with other business strategists and bring them into the conversation. But I just want the awareness to be there on the fact that you are actually building a company the whole time. Because if you're able to learn that stuff when you're 19, 20, you know, you're hitting the ground running in your 20, you know, when you're building your whole career, because like your 20s is a hugely important time as an artist to sort of get your foundation set with the right people, with the right companies. And, you know, I mean, obviously it continues into your 30s and 40s, and, you know, it never ends. But like, if you were able to come out with like all that energy, like I'm 34 now, and I feel like I've, you know, 40% of the energy that I had when I was 21, 22. Like, I was a complete workaholic. I always have been. But I can feel that difference in energy, you know. So if you were coming out of college with all of this knowledge and you were like put in the right path, can you imagine what that would do for your career in the long run? So that's something that we're really passionate about communicating. And in our free consultations, it's the first thing we say to people: do you understand that you are an entrepreneur? You are a sole trader. You are self-employed. Right. And that's one of the biggest bits, you know. And the first step, I think, when you get out of college or when you're in college, have a meeting with an accountant. Sit down and talk to them, you know, get a good referral for a good accountant, and just say, okay, how do I need to register myself? How do I need, you know, am I a limited company? Okay, are you running an ensemble? Maybe an ensemble is a limited company. Maybe an ensemble isn't self-employed. Are you a charity? Are you setting up an organization? Do you want to run concerts? Because loads of performers come out with different business ideas on how they want to run things. But I've found it so many times that the setup isn't there, and it leaves you very vulnerable. So, for example, during COVID, a lot of artists who weren't registered properly for tax, weren't registered correctly with, you know, doing their tax returns every year, and, you know, putting the thing, even if they felt that they weren't earning enough, were left so vulnerable when everything shut, because they weren't entitled to so much. There was so much they weren't able to get, which made them even more vulnerable. And that's the bit that kills me, is that I see this sort of fear around accountancy and structure in your business when you are running one, and all it does is actually leave you extremely vulnerable. So that's why we're really passionate about it, because it can it can completely derail someone's life if something happens. They've no backing, they've no support, they're not going to get the benefits that they deserve from the government because they're not filing the proper documentation that they should be doing, and it can be really catastrophic.
Okay, and what do you actually tell people in your university? I mean, yeah, get an accountant, that's certainly something, but as well, I mean, how can you actually build that, or how can you reach that? Because I believe actually in getting all the information, and that's why I love that work that you're doing so much, because usually as singers, you don't get all the information. It's just you have to grab it somewhere, or you don't even know that you need the information
in order to do
something.
Exactly. Right. That's my point. It should be there. It should be part of your training, because it's hand in hand. Like I said, 50% making the art, 50% getting it out there, and building the company. So yeah, well, how about doing the best way? Again, only in our opinion, humble opinion, is that accountant number one. Work out where does your money go when every single job you get, whether it's tiny, big, whatever. Where is it going? Are you invoicing properly? And then business strategist. Go to a mainstream business strategist, somebody who will take all of the artistic creativity out of the conversation and say, this is what needs to happen. So in order for you to live, how much do you need, like budgeting, basic things. And I really don't want to sound patronizing here, but I've just come across it so much where it's not in place. Yeah. So a business strategist is brilliant, and we've connected many of our clients to great business strategists who have changed their whole lives, changed their whole outlook on everything, and working out, because I think when you're an artist, it all becomes about opportunity. I need to get here, I need to get here, I need to get here. But in order for you to comfortably keep maintaining that, because that is part of the job, you have to have a foundation of income that's coming in. You have to have a structure that's there. So we, a lot of the times in our company, will get people at the very beginning of their idea, because the focus is photography and branding. And there's a lot of times where we'll say, you need to talk to an accountant, you need to talk to a business strategist, we need to understand your business, then we will look at your branding and your photography, because we need to know what that strategy is. Because in the States, we've always found this, that they interchange the word brand and company all the time. So it's definitely thought in the States a lot more than it is in Europe and the UK now. I hate the way I have to say Europe and the UK. But like in the States, it's very much interchangeable language. So we find that a lot of US artists that will come to us, and we work a lot in the US as well, that they know what a brand is. They completely get it. They understand it, because it's just there's an element of entrepreneurship that is kind of really taught through school and through university there. I have really noticed that there is a big difference, but it's understanding that there are steps to this. The business needs to be secure first, and then we need to know what that is. And now let's look at putting it forward, because that's the way a company would go. A company would set up the business, write the business plan, work out the budgeting, and then they go to the branding studio and the photography studio to present it then to the world. Whereas in the arts world, sometimes we're the first stop. And I'm telling you the truth, because I'm telling you not to come to us yet. But we'll always say, like, here's a really good accountant that we know, and here's a really good business strategist that you'll get on with very well. And, keep in touch and let us know. And we really want to work with you, but we want to make sure that you have your feet on the ground, so you know what you're bringing to us, because, you're paying money, and we want it to be a conversion. We want you to make a lot of money out of what you've done with us. So that's successful,
Yeah, that's really useful. I mean, really, as I said, I think most of the singers never, ever think like that. I mean, they come to that point, of course, I come to that point as well. Like, okay, now I'm out of school and I got this job. Yeah, great. And then the job is over.
Yeah.
And then,
then
it's like, and now I'm waiting for the phone call for the next opportunity, or the next audition, or the next competition, or whatever. And until then, what am I doing? I mean, you're sitting there and watching Netflix in your pajamas. That's basically what you're doing.
Living the dream. Living the dream. I know. But if you were to think about it, if you were to change that narrative a bit, so if you think of your company instead of you, So your singing career is the company in your head, and you're able to create that separation. So of course, when you're actually in a production, and, I work with so many different singers, and I can see that awful come down after the last night, like everyone talks about that. It's like you need about 3 days just to be depressed because you miss everybody and you've had this really high energy experience and it's really intense. You've made loads of friends and then suddenly it's gone.
Right.
And a lot of, I feel, that come down is back to uncertainty, back to fear, back to worry, back to what am I doing? But those sort of narratives start coming in. Whereas if you could change that narrative to back to the company, okay, here's the other aspect of the company, back to my 9 to 5, back to my sending my 50 new business emails out every month, which I think everybody should be doing anyway, or who am I talking to this week? Like what plans have I got in, what structure is happening? If that was the narrative, it would feel a lot different than, oh God, what have I got now? No other business works like this, so we can't be surprised when it feels like it's not moving, so that's the sort of stuff we work with all the time. And it's so much more than fonts and colors and pictures, it's you're building people's perception of themselves and how it's being projected onto others. It's really important. It's really important to get it right.
That's great. I think it sounds just great. I think that's really what we need, actually. And so this, yeah, welcome, very welcome. I mean, thank you. So this branding part is actually something. Do we need that? I mean, after the strategy, I mean, I know we need that, but why do we need that?
Why do we need branding?
Right.
It's a tricky question because we would tend to talk about an individual person as a brand identity, as their like an identity that we build with them. Because to brand a person, unless you're talking about Britney Spears, like who's an actual industry, it's quite tricky. And you don't want to overbrand somebody so they become impersonal and detached. But there's always this sort of joke that happens in branding that you need to make a company feel like a person and a person feel like a company. So basically, none of us can be ourselves. But when it comes to a festival, an opera company, that we work with a lot, PR agency, an agency itself, they need a brand. They're a business, they're a company, they work like everybody else. They have to have, a proper brand done. And we do that work too. With an individual artist, the reason that is so important is because the people who are deciding to hire you are so time poor. They don't have, the 5 years to get to know you. They don't have all that time to really understand what is it that you're thinking of. Are you thinking of going into Wagner in 4 years? Like no one has time to think like this. You have to tell them. You have to show them. And you need to walk into the room, and with every single marketing email, when I say marketing email, it sounds very detached, but with every email of connection that you send to a potential casting director or potential agent, or venue or festival that you want to hire you want to give a very strong impression. This is who I am. And that's what this is about communicating that immediately. So no one has to work hard to understand who you are. And we'll build that with, like I said before, the career trajectory. So when you write your business plan as a singer, in 5 years, I want to be singing Salome in Vienna State Opera House. Okay, well, we need to look at all the repertoire around that and how are people going to see you as that person. And then we want to look at your legacy. We want to look at where you're from, and we want to bring that right to the forefront because that's the most unique aspect about you. What is your heritage? That's like the biggest, most beautiful thing about you. And we want to push that out there as much as well. And geographically, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be based? Is there a real need for you to be somewhere that's outside of your control? And okay, well, let's focus on these theaters. Who are they hiring? What are they looking for? It doesn't matter if you're the best singer in the world. If people don't know you and you're not targeting yourself right, like it won't work. It has to be 50-50, in moving it forward.
Right. Not only about singing, but also about the business part. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for all this insight you gave us.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Can you please, or I will share your information maybe so people can approach you and actually talk to you?
Yeah,
and work with
absolutely.
you.
We'd love to hear. Yeah, and we do free consultations, so there's no hard sell or anything like that. We just want to hear from you.
Great. So you still do them, so people can actually contact you and talk to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. We've got
Call
loads
them
of bookings until the end of the month, but we're taking new bookings now till March, so that's no problem at all.
That's great. That's great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So have a nice weekend, everybody. Ich wünsche euch ein schönes Wochenende. Bis nächstes Mal.